Hey there, Knicks fans. It's your boy Jonathan Macri here with you for a very special announcement about something we are all very excited about here at Knicks Film School. Yes, it is the return of Fanatics Fest, which is taking over the Jacob Javits Center in New York City from Thursday, July 16th through Sunday, July 19th. This is an opportunity for you to meet all of your favorite athletes in every major league, catch some live podcasts and panels featuring some of the biggest names in sports, and experience interactive activations from top leagues and brands. This is a chance for you to check out all kinds of memorabilia, buy, sell, and trade collectibles, and of course, interact with other fans from around the world. Tickets are on sale now at fanaticsfest.com, and when you use your promo code KnicksFilm10 at checkout, you will get 10% off your purchase. It is an extra day of the world's #1 sports fan festival coming together under one roof, and you will not want to miss it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School Pregame Show. My name is Andrew Claudio, and it is time to preview another Knicks matchup, this time on not banner night is what we'll call it, Friday night against the Philadelphia 76ers. The Knicks, we should say at time of recording, the Knicks have not played the Indiana Pacers yet. So anything that happens or doesn't happen in that game, depending on who ends up playing in this post NBA Cup game on Thursday, I have not seen or reacted to yet. Obviously, as always, if something significant happens, you will not even have seen this intro because I will have re-recorded a new intro at the beginning. But we will be talking about the Knicks back-to-back on Friday against the Sixers. And I got to say, the hostility from a couple years ago from that playoff series has definitely faded. And this is a very fun and interesting Sixers team led by a young point guard that I have a lot of respect for in Tyrese Maxey, a young rookie that is having an outstanding first campaign with the Sixers, and VJ Edgecombe. Old friend Quentin Grimes is doing his thing off the bench, is a sixth man of the year candidate. And then, of course, they have Joel Embiid and Paul George, and we'll talk about how they fit into this 14-11 start that the Sixers are off to. We go through their resume, as I mentioned, 14-11, sixth in the East. You know, they're one of only 5 teams in the Eastern Conference that are over 500 on the road. The Celtics, the Sixers, the Hawks, the Toronto Raptors, and the Detroit Pistons, the only teams over 500. Obviously, we know as Knicks fans, the Knicks are not over 500 on the road. Although I want that Spurs win to count as a road win. We were technically in a different time zone. I say we like I'm on the team. They are as middle of the pack as you could point to a middle of the pack team in their net rating and their offensive rating and defensive rating. They're 14th in offense, 12th in defense, 15th in net rating, right in the middle of the league, which can be looked at as progress after last year's very strong Portland pivot that they did. It could be looked at as regression based off of the big contracts that they added. It's time to get that perspective because there's a lot of numbers you look at on this team, like they're 9th in turnover percentage and 9th in offensive rebound percentage, and they're 19th in pace. Like, they're not a team that plays very fast. They're a team that does go after the possession battle, and it's why they're 4th in field goal attempts per game, but 25th in field goal percentage per game. That leads, in my mind, to a middle of the road net rating and spot in the league. I am curious to find out how Sixers fans feel about this start to the Sixers season that they had. And joining me to talk about the Sixers start to the season, one of my favorite people to talk ball with, because allegedly he knows ball. In fact, he has a podcast that is called You Know Ball, Mr. Trill Bro Dude, because we don't say government names except mine around here. Trill, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. And that was a very perfectly summarized intro for the Sixers season so far this year. I can't believe I'm happy to be mid.
Who knew there was happiness in mid, just satisfaction in mid. So let's actually start there. If I told you before the season, you'd have let's take the names away, right? You'd have a point guard that's averaging 31, 32 points a game, squarely in the all NBA, like all-star MVP race, if you want to put him up there. You'd have a rookie that's firmly in the rookie of the year conversation. I think he's solidified himself as number 3 in the race personally, but I understand he started off as up there. VJ Edgecombe, I said take away the names. You have a rookie that's having a solid first year. You have a wing averaging 17 a game, hitting 43% from 3. You'd have a center averaging 20 a game in his 26 minutes of play. You'd have a sixth man that is averaging 15 a game and doing everything you want on both sides of the floor. And you're off to a 14-11 start. If I said all of that was happening, you'd say, you know what? That's a good foundation to build off of. When I add that the center is Joel Embiid and he's making what he's making, when I add that the wing is Paul George and he's making what he's making, and you really start to understand the identity change that this team has had to take on from where things were a year ago to where things are now, it adds some interesting context. So I ask you about the vibes in Philly. Is that change in the context of how you view this team? Has that fully taken over, or is there still a hint of like expectations not being met based off of what the projections were going into last season?
I think if you had told me that last summer and I knew that coming into this year, I would definitely be disappointed, considering this year and last year were supposed to be like our all-in years where we max Paul George. You know, Joel's supposed to be, you know, getting better health-wise, and, you know, he's kind of exiting his prime. But having seen last year, I can't really remove how disastrous last year was and how much of a nightmare it was to watch the team on a regular basis, having to have basically watch every single game and not knowing whether they were going to keep their pick or not was the real thing. I think last year when you had me on, I was like, can we just pull the plug? Because I can't lose. If I'm sitting through all this and then the 7th pick in the draft goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm going to be absolutely furious. But having gone through last year, and if you had told me this in, let's just say August or July, I kind of would have been over the moon, to be honest with you. Like the fact that, especially the last few games, I will say, from Joel Embiid, the first few games, I was like, it's over. Like, it's like, I don't think we'll ever, like, I honestly was like, is he going to medically retire? The first 3 games of the season, I was like, we cannot rebound when he's on the court. Defensively, he is just like a corpse. Like, he is just a shell of his former self. And while we were really excited about the VJ Maxey, you know, running up and down the court and turning teams over and all these crazy comebacks they had at the beginning of the year, it couldn't really be fully enjoyed because you had this, you know, dark cloud over the Sixers, which was Paul George wasn't playing games, and Joel Embiid, when he did play games, it was really depressing to watch him play. And there was a time where like the Sixers were running teams off the court through 5 games when it was Maxey and VJ with no Joel. And then when Joel was on the court, it completely sunk them. And I was starting to feel like it was going to be another sort of lost season because we were trying to integrate a player who is just not healthy enough or able enough to be a full-time NBA player. Having said that, where we're at now, the last few games has been a far cry from where Joel was at the beginning of this season. And I think that this recent stretch, the last 5 to 10 games of Paul George, which is really since he's come back from the injury, have been the best that Paul George has ever looked as a Sixer. I mean, he's super active on defense. He's been much better with the ball, making decisions. Obviously, the 3-point shooting, I think he's shooting a little bit above his head right now, so it looks a bit better. Some of the stuff that drives you crazy about Paul George is going to look a little bit better when he's making tough shots and the threes are going in and all of that. But the way that this team has basically not been healthy all at the same time this year, and the fact that they've been able to remain around that 500 mark, a little bit above it right now. And yes, most of their wins are kind of easy wins, to be honest with you. They haven't really beat anyone impressive, but they've hung with good teams, which is something that I wanted to see from them. And so far, I think this is, I wouldn't say this is like an A+ season, but I would say it's probably like a B or B+ when you consider where my expectations were at with this team over the summer.
So let's get specific. Joel Embiid. Knicks fans, I'm going to talk rationally about Joel Embiid. Let's have this conversation. Career low in effective field goal percentage at 45.5. He has not been efficient over now I say the full season. You also talked about when he plays. He's only played 11 games so far this year. He's got his career low in rim percentage. He's taking the fewest shots at the rim this season. The mid-range is exactly the same as it always is. It's around 50% of his shots are being taken in the mid-range. And then a career high in 3-point percentage of shots taken, which is around 26% from all threes. And not a ton of corner threes either. It's a lot of above the break. So this is a guy that his physicality was always so overwhelming. And like he's either getting to the rim or he's going to draw a foul that gets him to the line. And now it appears from just the numbers. And like I saw the same first couple games as well, especially that opening night Celtics game where he just didn't even look at the restricted area. He's like, I'm just going to get to a certain spot 10 feet away. If I can get there, I'll rise up. But it seems to be he's settling for jump shots this year. And you're telling like, how much has that changed? And how much has do you think regress from what the numbers have looked like through the 11 games that he's played?
Those first few games specifically, like he wasn't even trying to drive because it was very obvious that he did not trust his knee at all on those drives. I think that was ultimately what the reasoning was for why he was being like super perimeter based. I will say the last few games where I've said he's looked quote unquote more normal. Now I'm not saying he's even close to anything in regards to his MVP level seasons or, when he was making second or first team all NBAs, whatever it was. But he clearly looks a little bit more active at a minimum. Like he is contesting more shots. He is not completely last game he played. He had, I want to say 12 or 14 rebounds, which I didn't think after the first few games, once again, now we were playing against Atlanta, which is one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. But the first few games, like you looked at the rebounding numbers and it was like 3, 2. And it was like, we're seeing a very different version of Joel. Joel's never been like a great rebounder. I think that's been exposed at times in the playoffs. But he's always been a passable to good rebounder. And this was something that was extremely alarming for me. And as a scorer, I thought that he could be more effective as our joke always was, well, when Joel gets old, he could just become like a Brook Lopez plus type, right? Where like he spaces the floor. He's going to be someone who you can operate some offense through. He protects the rim, and potentially that might be able to extend his career until he's, in his mid to late 30s, right? Well, the injuries caught up with him and that's just not the case at all anymore. And it doesn't help when he's making like 12% of his threes recently. You pointed out that the mid-range stuff is kind of been static. It's kind of remained around the same general points that he's been at throughout his career. But the driving frequency is definitely down. The at rim attempts are definitely down when you watch. The free throw effectiveness is definitely down when you watch these games. And I think a large part of that is because there's 2 reasons. 1, the physicality. He doesn't really trust his knee in that regard. And 2, that they've asked him to be more of a focal hub as a passer and playmaker in the half court when he's playing with Tyrese Maxey or VJ Edgecombe or Jared McCain or Paul George, and basically making it, because like you've noticed earlier in the season, teams kind of picked up on this and they stopped double teaming him. And I think it was kind of throwing him off in a way that he's not used to, because he's someone who's been double teamed at the highest rates in the NBA for years because he was so effective as a scorer, and passing and playmaking was one of the weaker points of his game, and teams could turn him over and frustrate him and stuff. And more recently, they've kind of been not doing that until the last few games when the mid-range started to fall, when he's tried to be a little bit more aggressive, getting into the paint, drawing fouls, getting to the rim. And now teams are starting to send the double team. And I think that hopefully if he can remain healthy, which I was extremely pessimistic about I literally was like, I don't know if we'll ever see Joel Embiid play a basketball game again in the offseason. Like I was like, I kind of thought it was just like fully over. And then the first few games kind of just backed up my opinion on that, which was like, this guy should not be playing. Then the last handful of games, I was like, all right, when he can get on the court, he's more normal, but can we ever get to the point where this is just a regular thing for it to actually matter? And now I'm starting to be like, there might be a world where he could be a starting level center on this team. There needs to be a lot of, consistency, a lot of, just from a health perspective, like they're trying to say that he won't basically play unless he has 2 days of rest in between games. I don't think you can do that. Like, I think you need to be able to get to a point where he's playing at least 2 or 3 times a week just to keep the knee strong, because this injury, this is the thing I'm trying to talk about with this meniscus injury and like the recovery from the meniscus. It's so random. Like, it's like resting doesn't necessarily help it. Playing through it actually might be the best thing for it. But how long can you keep Joel Embiid healthy has always been the biggest question throughout his entire career.
Yeah, it was very tough to hear the things during the offseason and then try to predict anything about the Sixers this year. And like, I think I took their under just because of the uncertainty. And like, I realized in all that intro that I gave earlier, I'd never said the name Jared McCain. And there are so many young pieces on this team to be excited about. But we just spent the majority of the first 15 minutes of this convo talking about Joel Embiid. I mean, on pace to play about 45 games this year. And I mean, what's the most optimistic outlook on Joel Embiid? I hate to put you on the spot for rest of career, but like, what is the most, to a Sixer fan, what is the most optimistic outlook on Joel Embiid going forward?
I honestly think that coming into this season, if you had told me that he's on pace for 45 games, would have blown my mind.
Progress.
I literally said before the year, I was like, I said, I don't know if we'll ever see him again. And I would be shocked if he even gets to 25 to 30 games. Like, I was kind of just, because it's very funny coming into the season with Embiid and Paul George. I was more optimistic on Paul George being like, look, like, I know Paul George has had a ton of like nicks throughout the year, like with, the knee injury. And I was going to say, like,
real quick, I got to correct myself. He's on pace for 36 games. My math was very off there, but that is what he's on pace for.
I was going to say, once again, I still would have been like, progress for sure. Like 36 games is not a lot, but it's more than I ever, and especially because he's played limited minutes in a lot of those games too. He was on a minutes restriction for the large majority of these games. That I want to say, just perspective on this, I'm just happy that Joel Embiid is able to play basketball. Right. Like, I've kind of already in my mind, it was just like all of this stuff was bonus, because I was going into the season just being like, how will we look for the whole season without Joel Embiid? And honestly, I think this could be a middling basketball team without Joel Embiid. And I say that in a positive way. And it is hard to figure out, like, you never know what the rotations are, not just with Joel, but with Paul George and guys have been banged up all throughout the year. The modern NBA with the pace and the amount of injuries and the miles run and stuff. It is hard just to balance and figure out what your rotations are and be a normal team throughout all of this. But what I was saying was, like, basically coming into the year, I was a little bit more optimistic that Paul George could somewhat get back to form, because Paul George, while he's had all these little injuries, he's never had like a big overarching injury that is like potentially career ruining. And the last few years, I mean, obviously we know the infamous injury a decade ago at this point, but he obviously bounced back from that and still had, finished third in MVP after that horrific leg injury. So my point on all this was basically like, if you told me one of these two guys was going to bounce back and return to a little bit of, pre-last year form, I would imagine it's Paul George and not Joel Embiid. So far, that's kind of proven to be the case, even though Paul George hasn't been able to play all that much. But ultimately with Joel, like, I think all of this is just like a bonus. Like, I don't really think in terms of, can he make all-star teams again? Can he ever get back to, like, if he can play 35 to 40 games this year, I think that is progress for him. And I think that's progress for where I was at with him over the offseason. Because like I said, I didn't even think of him when I was coming into the year, basically.
Yeah, it's weird because he's Joel Embiid, and this is the same conversation Knicks fans are having about Mitchell Robinson. And it's not even a games played thing, it's a minutes played. Like, I will say that it seems the Knicks have kind of wrapped Mitch in bubble wrap and said, Like we need you for 4 rounds in April, May, and June.
Get you to the
and
postseason.
More specifically, we need you for 7 games against Cleveland, should that series come up, because of how effective you have seemed to be against the Cleveland Cavaliers. But it's very much an expectation.
We have to worry about Cleveland in the postseason.
Well, now the recontextualizing of the season is.
But before the year, I agree. I had that. That was my conference finals.
It's the thing I kept saying about Mitch. I don't care about his defensive player of the year odds. Shout out to our friends at Fanatics Sportsbook. I don't care about his all defense prospects. I don't care about whether he starts or comes off the bench. I need him for all 7 games they might play against the Cavs in April or May. And it might look more like April than May, the way this season is going for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But the Knicks play the Cavs on Christmas because the NBA thought that was the only interesting Eastern Conference matchup to exist. So I will have that conversation later next week. I will say we talked about Embiid, to then talk about Paul George. And to the Knicks fans who don't know, he was 31% from 3 in his 5 games in November. Then in December, the 5 games he's played so far this month, he's shooting 54.8% from 3, including his best game of the season against the Atlanta Hawks, where he had 35 points and was 7 of 10 from 3. So, I mean, I hate to not ask you a basketball question and more just the feelings and fan base question, but like, how do Sixers fans feel? Process, an interesting word to use is with the Sixers. How do they receive how Paul George has looked in year 2 of this contract? Has it been like, forget what the number on the contract is, let's just evaluate what's on the court? Like, what's the relationship with Paul George to Sixers fans?
We're so used to this. This was literally the Tobias Harris thing all over again. We're like, no matter what Tobias did, it was always he makes $40 million a year. And if he played well, if he played bad, whatever, he makes $40 million a year. I think this year with Paul George, once again, my expectations were low for Paul George, but I did think that there was a better chance that he could come back and have a bounce back season relative to someone like Joel. And what we've seen from Paul George so far is honestly, like, we could talk about the offense with him, which I think is basically entirely reliant on his jump shot falling from both 3 and mid range for him to be like an effective offensive player. But the defense has been legitimately, we were a tragic defense early in this season. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but since Paul George has come back, I think we have the 6th best defense in the NBA. And it's not all shooting luck like it was early in the season, where like teams were shooting like 30% from 3 against us, and then it regressed and our defense was just horrible. But Paul George, when he is on the court, has legitimately changed our defense. Not only is he just like obviously a big wing who can like defend, he's like a really instinctive defensive player where the playmaking, like he's always up there in the league leaders with deflections and steals. And in this NBA, which you just talked about, like the Sixers are trying to be like a possession team. That's been huge for us so far this season. Like he's been by far our best defender, I would say. And the minutes with him and VJ defensively have been kind of crazy for us, because we really, ever since Ben fell off a cliff in 2022, I guess we traded him and he didn't play. But really, since that 2021 season before the Hawks collapse, like the Sixers have been a primarily like we always have decent defenses just because Joel's always been able to anchor a good defense. Like that's kind of been one of his strong suits as a rim protector and paint protector, is that if Joel's on the court, you're going to have a good defense. So we've always had decent defenses, but like we've kind of been a more offensively tilted team the last few years with like James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. And, now to have someone who's actually an effective wing defender has legitimately changed the level of defense that we can be. And I think adding VJ as a rookie who's already like an effective off-ball defender, that's like a disruptive defender, good rebounder at the guard spot, combined with Quentin Grimes, who's having a really, really nice defensive season so far this year, and Paul George, it's actually really changed kind of where we're at I'll just throw out a stat for you. In the 958 minutes that Paul George has not played this year, which is a lot of minutes to not play, the Sixers have a 116 defensive rating. So that's not particularly good. in the 262 minutes that he has played this year, they have a 106 defensive rating. So he has, and by the way, teams are shooting 34% from three during the minutes that he doesn't play and 38% from three in the minutes that he does play. So it is not just random hot 3-point shooting that is keeping this defense really good when Paul George is on the court. It's that he is one of the few guys on this team that can defend on the perimeter, that's a really good help side defender, and a guy that can cause turnovers, cause chaos. And that's the style of defense that Nick Nurse wants to play. He started this in Toronto where they were just always winning the possession battle, disruptive defenders, guys would turn them over. They would run in the full court and stuff like that because of their offensive deficiencies. And it has been massive for Paul George to come back for this defense so far. I think since he's come back and been like normal the last handful of games, I think he's been our best player, even better than Tyrese Maxey recently. On the season, Tyrese has been way better than Paul George. I want to be clear here. Like, I do think that what you were saying earlier is definitely true. Like, I did my MVP ballot the other day, just like a quarter season, half season, whatever MVP ballot. And I had Maxey sixth behind, it was, the usual Shea, Jokic. Then I had like Cade and a few other guys on my list. And then I got to Maxey. And like, I think Maxey, if you zoom out, considering the minutes played, considering the offensive workload, considering everything that he's gotten better at, has by far been our best player. By a mile has been our best player this year. But in the last 5 or 6 games, since Paul George has become a little bit more normal, he's been legitimately like team changing so far this year. And I've been a huge Paul George skeptic in the past, but he's been like legitimately, I haven't seen a good wing like this, two-way wing like this on the Sixers since Jimmy Butler, basically.
So you mentioned the offs, by the way. The it was at 117 is their defensive rating when he's off.
Yeah.
So and then it's what, around 106, 107?
Yep.
Okay. So Knicks fans have a good history of understanding that type of on-off. OG Anunoby in the possessions he's played for the Knicks this year, it's a 108 defensive rating, and when he's off the floor, which he missed a couple games and the sky was falling for Knicks fans, when he's not on the court this year, they have a 119.2. So one of the worst defenses in the NBA if he's off the court, one of the best defenses in the NBA when he's on the court. The offensive side of the ball is obviously where both of them are interesting. Paul George is averaging like 12% of his shots at the rim this year, and everything else is in the mid-range or from three. So to your point, it very much, his offensive impact is predicated on his jump shooting. I think we did the Paul George and Joel Embiid conversation justice, though, because I do want to give you a chance to talk about what Maxey's been, what McCain has been, VJ, obviously our old friend Quentin Grimes here in New York. Like, just Maxey in general. I mean, so here's where I want to talk to someone from Philly and just like a Philadelphia sports fan about this, because I think what the Eagles have done for the reputation of Philadelphia sports fans has made it that, oh, you're just ungrateful about everything, without understanding how frustrating watching a Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley offense could potentially be. And then you have Maxey, and like there's just so much good to enjoy about the young players on this team. And I guess my question is, like, what bad is there to say about Tyrese Maxey? Is there a single thing bad to say about Tyrese Maxey? Because I know if I can ask someone from Philadelphia or from the area, like, you'll find it. But I don't out from the outside looking in, know of a bad thing to say about Tyrese Maxey.
The Maxey skeptics, which they are I would say most Maxey skeptics are like either holdovers from like the Embiid era that are like, he's not Joel Embiid, so he sucks. Or
really?
It's a very, very, very small fraction.
Vocal?
Yeah, I call them brain poisoned online Zoomers.
Brain poison online, trademark that.
Yeah. But there's a very, very small faction of Sixers fans, like let's say 0.5%, that are I wouldn't even say anti-Maxey, but like Maxey skeptics. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that was just built on last year, because he had all these expectations coming into last year. Can he go from all-star to all-NBA? Can he become, can he go from nice young player to like franchise player? And last year, it seemed like coming out of the season, the answer was like a definitive no. But my argument was basically like someone who earlier in their career, I was a little bit skeptical of relative to the national conversation was Cade Cunningham, where I was like, if he's so good, why are the Pistons this terrible? Like basically for years. And then last year, I think he showed you, like, if I have a little bit of time to stay healthy, if I have a little bit of sense of normalcy around me, if I have a coach who doesn't want to, basically not be there all the time.
If I'm not stuck playing next to Killian Hayes. Yeah,
exactly. Like I can be the guy that everyone thought I could be pre-draft. And with Maxey last year, my argument coming out of the year was like, look what just happened with Cade, where like Cade goes from, promising, nice young player with some seemingly pretty big flaws that couldn't really help Detroit win, to now it's like, could this guy be, a future MVP candidate in one season? Like it flipped the script that quickly for him. And with Maxey last year, I was like, there were some metrics out there that were like, he had like the worst spacing around him, the worst shot making around him. Like basically everyone on the team analytically was like the worst. Like he was our only starter level player last year, according to most analytics. So I was like, if you watch the games, it's very obvious that he is the only one that gives us anything. And if he misses if he misses time, or if he is not someone who is dropping 30 points on good efficiency, then we're just going to lose games. That's just kind of the reality of what this season is. And coming out of that, I think he took he got a decent amount of criticism. I wouldn't say from the media here, but from a lot of fans online. And he took all summer to work on the weaknesses of his game, which were like interior passing, which was something that I think that he has gotten way better at. His at rim assists are like, I think double to triple what they were before this season. He has worked on his pull-up 3-point shooting, and mid-range bag in general, and his pull-up shooting has been way more effective this season. And it has made him into basically a complete offensive player. Like he can lead our offense now, where you can run offense through him. You can give him the ball, let him cook. He's averaging an efficient 30 points per game on every single night. He's able to score at all three levels now. He's reintroduced the floater game so that when teams play certain coverages against him, he knows what he can kind of rely on and fall back on. He's getting to the free throw line more. He has been pretty much everything we've asked for. I think he's been one of the 10 to 12 best players in the NBA so far this season. And he has basically been exactly, even to the point where like, I think the offensive stuff, I always figured it was going to come along for him at some point in terms of making this leap into like all NBA status. But the defensive stuff that I always liked about him when he was a prospect in college didn't really translate all that much into the NBA. Like I always thought like he has a bigger wingspan than you think. He has a 6'8" wingspan, and he's slowly put on weight throughout the years, gotten a lot stronger. And I actually think at this point, he's like a slightly positive defender, which I don't really think a lot of people have caught up to. I think a lot of people just go small guard. He probably sucks on defense. There's still nights where he can get targeted because obviously the NBA is massive now and he's not going to, lock up a bunch of wings and bigs on switches and stuff like that. But like he actually, funny enough, another guy that's towards the top of the list of this metric this year in the pick sixes category in terms of just playing passing lanes, getting out running. Him and Mikal Bridges have been basically going back and forth all year, leading the league in that statistic. And you see his motor is just like on another level this year. He's playing like 40 minutes a game. We were dying the minutes he wasn't sitting before Paul George and Joel Embiid kind of got somewhat healthy. And we were really not able to hang on in the very few minutes that he didn't play. But he has been great as a defensive playmaker. He has a career high in steals. He's getting deflections. He's just been like a career high in blocks. Like he is legitimately like a neutral to slightly positive defender who also happens to give you 30 points a game on good efficiency, never turns the ball over, and is, having a career high in assists as well. So Maxey has been everything I could possibly ask for this year. I think if the guard position wasn't as like, you think about how many good guards there are in the NBA right now, like not just Shea and Luka, but Brunson and Cade and all these guys. Like I think Maxey would be getting a lot more love in a season when it wasn't like the best teams in the NBA's best players are guards. And then also we're having Shea having this all-time guard season. But Maxey has been everything I could possibly ask for. Like I'm very happy that he bounced back from last year, because I was starting to worry that like this was going to get to a point where we were going to have to trade him. And now I think he's proved to be a worthy guy that you can actually build like a legit team around.
And look, the hostility, as I referred to, of the series, the playoff series from 2 years ago with the Knicks, universal acclaim for Tyrese Maxey. That was the biggest takeaway I had leaving that series, outside of like the feelings and the emotions that arose from a highly contested playoff series. Was they got a guy. Like they've been searching for that number 2 next to Joel Embiid for all these years, and that's like what they have in Maxey is legitimate. And look, he's the number 1 person I'm most afraid of when the Knicks take the court on Friday night for sure. The interesting thing about the Sixers with the young players, and look, I'll include Quentin Grimes in that. You know, he's like, I think he's only like
25,
25 years old. So, you know, it reminds me ironically of a Knicks team that Quentin Grimes was on, which was the 2023 New York Knicks that won 47 games. Obviously Embiid to Julius Randle is an interesting conversation. Paul George to RJ is also a kind of interesting conversation. But like they had this young point guard emerging with Brunson back then. And then just all of these fun young players with like we had Quickly and Grimes and Obi Toppin and Deuce McBride. And then you got Jared McCain and VJ Edgecombe, different spots in the draft and different expectations, of course. But I guess my question is, like, what does a successful season look like for the Sixers with the young pieces that are young players that are on the team, with the uncertainty of what some of the high end, big ticket players on the team are? Like, you'll leave this season satisfied with the success that they had if the success looks like what?
So coming into the year, I literally said, like, can we hang in the play-in range? Like maybe get a little bit above that, the 6 to 9 seed, let's say, like somewhere in there would have been like, as long as Maxey's doing what he's doing right now. Honestly, he's even exceeded my expectations, as VJ looks like the guy I think that he can be. And honestly, I think in the preseason, that Knicks game was when he struggled to start that game in the preseason, and then he kind of figured it out throughout the course of that game, started to give me a little bit more higher expectations of what he could be. Now, obviously, him coming out of the gate and making every jump shot to start his career maybe blew the expectations out of proportion for him, where I was like, oh, cool, we just drafted Michael Jordan.
Right.
But now that he's come back down to earth and been more of a normal rookie with, you know, we jokingly said that Nick Nurse threw him into the rookie wall because he was playing him, as you are familiar with Tom Thibodeau minutes, he was playing him the most minutes for a rookie since LeBron James in the dead ball era. So modern NBA minutes, coming from college, coming to the NBA, playing the most minutes imaginable.
It was a lot. Yeah.
It literally, you started to see in week 2, Andre, I think it was 2.5 to 3 weeks into the season, where Andre Drummond said he's never seen an NBA player as tired as VJ Edgecombe after they got done second half of a back-to-back in a game that they went to overtime. And I believe they said, like, he was like, that guy needs some rest. And they did luckily give him a few games off, and they just gave Maxey, he had an illness, so they gave him some time off. He obviously needed it. But the long and short of this is, like, I've been very happy with everyone. The Grimes experience is very chaotic. Someone put this perfectly, which is that I don't know if you saw this tweet, but someone told me about this tweet that said that Quentin Grimes hoops like his crushes in the stands, and that he's trying to impress them, and it's either going to go very well or very poorly. And Grimes has been, actually, the defensive consistency has kind of been there from him this year, especially to start the year. He was locking guys up early in the season, and it was probably his best stretch, I would say, defensively since he was on the Knicks. But he has been very sporadic up and down this year. We obviously don't have him locked up under contract. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent because they couldn't come to a deal before the season. But I think he's been kind of the prototypical, exactly what I want from a 6-man in terms of like he can play both with the ball, without the ball. Defensively, he's much more advanced than your average six man. And occasionally when the stars are out, he can scale up a little bit. So I've been very satisfied with Maxey, and VJ have been kind of the reason why this season has been as exciting as it is. Just because VJ, once again, I would say is a neutral to positive NBA player already, despite the fact that he shoots like 42% from the field and is still, needs to put on a lot of weight and get stronger and learn the NBA game. Like, if he ever can get to a point where he's like an efficient to above efficient scorer, he's going to be like a legit two-way problem in the league for sure. Just with his rebounding and his defensive playmaking and all that stuff, he is just going to be an NBA player for a very long time and an impactful winning one. The guy that's been the most disappointing by far by a mile this season has been Jared McCain. I had extremely high expectations for him, probably because he was one of the few bright spots last year where it was just like this rookie comes out of the gate, is putting up, the first rookie since this and that, looked like a veteran player as a rookie. Like he had shades of, obviously he's not near this level of player, but like the movement off of the ball, I had Warriors fans telling me that like, they haven't seen a guy as this young move off the ball since Steph was young. Like in terms of where to be on the court, actions off of the ball, just kind of the intuitive nature of his game and his shooting gravity and all of that. And then when he was on the ball, you saw elements of like, he talked about like his two favorite players were Steph and Brunson. And if you watched him, like he looked like he was studying Steph tape off the ball, and on the ball, there were moments where he would do, the little Brunson, like, basically get a guy on his hip and kind of control him on drives and using his strength and his low center of gravity to get guys off balance in the paint and score over them and draw free throws and stuff. So my expectations after those like 20 games he played last year, I was like, okay, we might have a future star in our hands. And then tears his meniscus in classic Sixers fashion, is really starting to get back on track, finally starts playing again, is in training camp, and has a torn ligament in his thumb, which so far this year, he has just looked like in the opposite fashion of the way that Paul George has looked for the Sixers so far this year, in a negative fashion. Like he's recovering from a major knee surgery combined with he's a shooter who the shots aren't going in. And he has been a really rough watch so far this year. I'm still not giving up hope on him in terms of what he can be as an NBA player, but my expectations are just very different for him now that Maxey and VJ are what they are. And he is clearly, if I had to make the bet, he would be probably in the Emmanuel Quickley long-term guy on the outside looking in that they might look to trade eventually, I would imagine.
Which is ironic because the Quickley Hive, which I think I ended up being a part of, the Hive, I guess, if you think he's really good and he should play more, it puts you in a hive, apparently. But I always thought there was more meat on the bone, even though I thought he probably is best suited as a sixth man. And maybe that's where Jared McCain is, that in the right offense with the right coach, which maybe that is Nick Nurse, he's just probably more of a sixth man at this point.
Yeah.
What makes it interesting, and this is my last Sixers question, is the who's a keeper and who's not on the team. And I'm just going to exclude Embiid and Paul George from this conversation. And I guess Maxey.
To be clear, we can't trade them even if we wanted to.
Right. So even if you did, it's for something that another team would
exactly. Yeah.
Right. So it's ironically the James Harden conversation is very funny. That if you wanted to,
I would say
bad contract for bad contract.
I was going to say it would probably be like Zach LaVine, what I mean, like Paul George for Zach LaVine or something. You know what I mean? Like you're not getting back someone who's like going to help this team. It's going to be someone who's redundant and makes a ton of money, and you just do it to get off the contract earlier.
So then knowing what Quentin Grimes' contract is this year, it's 1 year, $8.7 million. I got to be honest, the Sixers succeeding the way I have and not falling off this year puts a wrinkle in my plan. I was kind of hoping that maybe a Quentin Grimes reunion was out there to be had if the Sixers had fallen off. But
I don't think that's impossible, to be clear.
But so that's okay. Maybe that's actually where the question should go. As far as keepers are concerned with the Sixers, knowing that Grimes is here on a 1 year deal, knowing that you got a young core here, that's interesting and fun to watch. But knowing the long-term success of this franchise is probably not a championship this year, and it's more beneficial to try and get some assets this year. And correct me, what's the protections on the pick this season?
We're giving up the pick. It's top 4. Like there's no chance. Even
unless they finish top 4,
if we were the worst team in the NBA, there's a 50-50 chance we lose the pick.
Right.
Like I try to tell people this. Like people were like, they might tank again. I'm like, there's no point in tanking.
So their pick is going to OKC. So they have no incentive to tank even this year. So how active do you think they'll be at the deadline? How will they be looked to be buyers potentially at the deadline? And basically who's here to stay long term for the Sixers in your mind?
If I had to make a bet, I would say the most likely scenario is they try to dump. There's a few guys that they try to dump just to save money on the tax and potentially dodge the tax entirely, which would be the category of guys I think would be Eric Gordon's the most likely just because he doesn't play and he makes a vet minimum of like $3 million. It would help them cut their tax bill in half. They dump him. Andre Drummond and Kelly Oubre would probably be the second and third on that list. In terms of they might be able to get a second round pick for one of those guys, or maybe Oubre might get you 2 second round picks as an expiring. And if they could just dump him entirely and dodge the tax, I think that is the most likely, to be clear. Daryl loves to do this thing. Maury is just obsessed with hey, we dumped Thibault to dodge the tax if, the last time that we were contending, quote unquote. And we got, Jaden McDaniels' brother, Jalen McDaniels. We're really excited about him. We think he could be a starter, which was bullshit. He was lying. He was literally just saying that because he had to sell something to the fan base for them dodging the tax. There's probably a move that's in there that's we just traded Andre Drummond and a second round pick to the Memphis Grizzlies for Jock Landale or something. You know what I mean? Where it's just we get a vet min guy back. That's the most likely scenario. I think they'll explore Grimes trades, to be honest with you, because if there is a team like the Knicks or the Warriors or this team, there's just a team out there that's he could really help us in this run. And we might give up a second or 2 seconds to go get him, even though it's just a rental for the rest of this season. And we risk losing him after the year. The Sixers are going into a summer where if anyone gives him a dollar more than the middle-level exception, they're losing him because they don't they technically could match and be all right, we'll give you $15 million, but they've kind of shown they're not really highly prioritizing Quentin Grimes in a way that they would have locked him up this past offseason, and they didn't. And there are teams with cap space like the Washington Wizards that could just be here's $18 million for 2 years, and then he's gone. And right. You lose him for nothing. So I think they'll explore Oubre trades. I think they'll explore Grimes trades. I think they'll explore Drummond trades. And I think they're more likely to be quote unquote sellers at this deadline. There might be a scenario where there's a guy out there that they really like that's young and fits on the Maxey VJ timeline that I'm just throwing a name out there. I don't, because there are guys that I could dream pie in the sky that I don't think they're going to be able to get. That would be I don't know, fucking Herb Jones or Tari Eason or whoever. But the guys that are more realistically available at this deadline are Jeremy Sohan, where it's just they've been trying. I'm not a big fan of Sohan personally, but they have been trying to find a 4 who can rebound, who can pass, who can play defense that fits a diet version of what Draymond was for Steph for Maxey, basically. And that's why they signed Trendon Watford. That's why they signed Dom Barlow. That's why they drafted Janai Broom, who is legitimately the worst NBA player I've ever seen. No offense to Janai Broom, who had a great college career and will probably be in Europe very soon.
Yes, but no offense. Yeah.
No offense. He's going to make millions of dollars playing basketball, and I'm just some fucking bum. But
you're a podcaster, not a bum. A podcaster.
That's true. The most
There's
important job in America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the reason I say this is like, they've been trying to find that archetype of 4 because we've just been so desperate for that I could see them making a trade like that where they might give up like a little bit of value. Like, here's a bunch of, filler money, and then we'll give you like a second, and like, we'll take the guy that you don't want. But that's like, I would be floored if they made like an all-in style move. Like, I think they're more likely to be sellers than they are to be buyers.
So they're at around 7 million into the tax, or into the luxury tax. They're very below the first apron though, so they don't
have to worry about that.
They don't have to worry about that.
They dodge the tax every chance they get. That's like Daryl Morey's. That's Morey's specialty going back to his time with the Rockets. It's like every deadline just finding one move to like dodge the tax entirely.
Yeah, I'm staring at Spot Track now. I guess the difficult thing for a Knicks conversation is that, so the Knicks are hard capped at the second apron, and they have $148,000 of space between where they currently are and the second apron. So they would need more money going out, which I think is the first apron restriction too, that you can't have more money coming in than going out.
The Nets have to be involved in some capacity, or a team that takes money.
It's Charlotte. Charlotte's a team they keep going to for a 3-team trade when they do it. So I doubt there's a Knicks Sixers partner here. Although Quentin Grimes.
Oubre would be interesting for me, for you guys. And now look,
what's he making?
So Oubre makes around the same amount as Quentin Grimes. He makes a little bit less. He makes $7.5 million. Because I know you guys have been interested in Najee Marshall. I know that's been a name that's been floated out there for the Knicks. I like that fit a lot personally, but Najee might be someone that they're trying to keep. And like, I know that Oubre makes a little bit more. And Oubre, while he can drive you insane, like if he's just like your third wing, like guy that like when Mikal Bridges goes to the bench, can we just survive 8 minutes? I think he can do that. Like, he's athletic enough to stay on the court in the playoffs. He's good enough as a defensive playmaker. He's a good rebounder. The shot comes and goes, and man, it can be brutal with the decision making and the shooting. But he is ultimately like, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up like an 8th man, third wing on a really good team eventually.
So I think a team beats this offer, but it's something like Yabusele. I can't believe. Are you shocked at how bad Yabusele's been with the Knicks this year? Okay.
I have been. I like that pickup actually for the Knicks. And once again,
so did I. Yeah, he was our taxpayer mid-level. Yeah.
And I was like, with the taxpayer mid-level, like you usually don't get a guy that you even think can play real minutes, and I thought he would, to be honest, but. A lot of Sixers fans told me last year, they were like, I just think when he gets to a good team, he's just not going to be playable because he's kind of a tweener. It's hard to make him work in a lot of lineups defensively. And I mean, he also just like shot like crazy with us for a stretch last year where he looked awesome on offense. But no, I've been surprised that he's been as disappointing as he has been with you guys.
He just needed to come here and be an 8th man, an 8th or 9th man. And he's barely been a 10th or 11th man.
Yep.
Their Cup final game the other night, not even a thought to get him off the bench. And I think what's most disappointing for Knicks fans, what they're processing, is loved the signing when it happened. And then he played Eurobasket over the summer and looked outstanding. So it's like, oh my gosh, are there going to be moments where he starts games this year? And that's the 5-out look that they can have. And he's been unplayable. He's just flatly been unplayable at the majority of. He's not big enough to be a center and protect, guard the rim or guard in space. Can't guard the perimeter. Hasn't shot enough to be like a cat replacement or a center when Mitch isn't playing. So yeah, he's salary filler at this point. So it ends up being
like a 1-year deal, right?
I think there's a +1 on it because of
the Sixers wouldn't take it then. I was going to say, you might be able to find another team that will take it, but I know that the Sixers whole thing is like they never take on money past this. Like they'll only take
player option money for next year.
Yeah. If it's money they don't want, like they obviously didn't want to give him that contract in the first place, but like if there is longer term money and they don't view it as like a scam deal, quote unquote, they just don't take on longer term money. So
Yeah, he's going to pick up that option.
That's easily movable still, in my opinion. Like, I think
it has to go to a team that is looking to shed salary. Like, what would be fine with him being an expiring contract this summer, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's
the
more
Jazz or something. Like, there's a team out there, the Jazz or the Hornets, or one of these teams that will be sellers at the deadline that might be like, all right, we'll take a flyer. Like the Jazz always like to take on like bigs that can do a little bit with the ball and like can shoot a little bit, and like they don't really care about like, you know, performing in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, there is a world where the Knicks don't have to make any moves this season or this deadline because they're currently the reigning NBA Cup champions, and that matters. I've been saying that for as long as I can remember.
Respect the Cup. Unfortunately, James Dolan doesn't, but
I gotta be honest, the banner gate has only grown in annoyance in my life and in my brain over the last 24 hours. At first, it was when they announced that they weren't going to do it. I was like, all right, so like party's over. This doesn't matter. Let's go get back to trying to win a championship. And just over the course of the day, it just kept growing. Like, no, this is actually a chess move. Like, here's what I think of your little tournament, Adam Silver. Then you add in, like, what's so sacred about the rafters at MSG that you can't hang an in-season tournament banner? Why can't
my co-host said it's only reserved for things like Harry Styles selling it out,
or Atlantic Division Championship banners? Like, you have those,
no one cares about.
It's only grown in annoyance. At the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter. It's like all Dolan's antics have not held the Knicks back from doing anything over the past several years. They've built what they've built now with him being the owner the entire time and attending courtside games courtside the majority of the time. So I'm more annoyed than I am worried it'll have any type of ramifications at the end of the day. The only thing that, like, it's more a fan thing, like the graphic that Yahoo put out there that said no banner, and it's like, oh, that's going to come up around the playoffs if the Knicks lose. That's going to come up again, you know.
You're cursed either way, because the Lakers and Bucks immediately fell apart after they won the cup last time. No, it was kind of like their last stand. Those teams, like, they had both already won titles. They had an aging core. The Knicks are like squarely in the middle of their prime, and now it's like, no matter what you do, it feels like you have to be the team that beats the curse.
Right.
Maybe this is the way to beat the curse.
Do they not hang a conference championship banner if they win? That's technically, you didn't win anything. Like, but you did win a conference. There will be a trophy given to the conference champion. There will be a trophy given to the conference champion of the East MVP if it's Jalen Brunson, whoever wins it.
First final since the 90s, they're hanging that banner.
I would too, but then why, when you actually won the cup?
Well, my thing is, you
officially see how annoyed I am by this becoming a story.
Well, I've been saying I picked them to go to the finals in the preseason. I picked OKC Knicks as my finals, and I feel very confident in that pick. And I feel like
real quick, according to our friends at Fanatics Sportsbook, 2 current favorites to win each conference. Yeah,
there you go.
Plus 290. Yeah,
December 18th. Obviously, I think health is more important than it ever has been in the history of the NBA. The last few years have proven that. Availability, extremely important, obviously. On December 18th, I'm to the point where I'd be pretty floored. Maybe I will regret saying this. I think it's more likely the Thunder get upset in the playoffs than the Knicks in the East. That's how confident I am in this Knicks team being, I wouldn't say levels above the rest of the conference, but a significant level above the rest of the conference when you consider where the Celtics are at, where the Cavs are at, a team that we thought would challenge them. The Magic have been up and down, and the Franz injury plays a big part, obviously. But like, I kind of think in terms of, because I said, like, if you put the Knicks up against, I thought they had a chance to go to the finals last year. I picked them to go to the conference finals. They ended up obviously losing to the Pacers, but like, the reason why they ultimately lost to the Pacers is because eventually the Pacers figured out a way to expose some of the defensive issues that the Cat Brunson fit had, and they basically are this explosive up and down offensive team. And there really isn't a team like that this year in the East where I look at like, oh, they'll be able to figure out a way. Like, I just think that offensively, the level that the Knicks are at, that's going to be the best unit in the Eastern Conference. And they have enough defensive infrastructure to withstand any sort of issues that they might have on that end in a playoff series. And I'm just like, I guess maybe if Tatum comes back and looks like Tatum, like the Celtics could be interesting, but like the Knicks already beat the Celtics and they were better last year. So like, I just kind of look at this Knicks team and think that they're I think that the three teams that challenge the Thunder in the West are more likely to upset the Thunder than the Knicks are in a playoff setting. Now the Thunder are the best team in the NBA, and I respect the defending champions and stuff, but ultimately I think the Knicks are just kind of a level above everyone else in the East right now.
As someone who picked Denver as his finals pick this year, I actually respect the take. I do also respect the Thunder, and 24-2 is 24-2. I would like them to play other teams is what I see what their strength of schedule is as well. I want to see it over an 82 game sample. It may be a 72 win 82 game sample. Sure. I also think the Nuggets might win 60, 62 games this year. Now they've also the second easiest schedule this year. So, we'll see what happens when they start playing.
The West is going to be a murderer's row though. Like
absolutely. Like literally the fourth best team, maybe the fourth or fifth best team in the conference, the Spurs, have this wild card of what if Wemby just decides I'm going to win every playoff series that I play in.
Yeah. And the East just doesn't really have anything like that this year, especially with like the teams that we thought to be contenders of yesteryear are kind of not really, like the Sixers and the Bucks have just like, they're not contenders. And like, whether the Sixers were ever actually contenders at any point is a different conversation, but they can win any given playoff series, I think.
So you're not buying Detroit?
I like Detroit a lot. I want to see what they do at the deadline. I think it would be a mistake if they didn't go get a second scorer to put next to Cade. I think that in the regular season, that team, I think they have a very good chance of making the conference finals. I think the way that they put that team together, the way that Cade's been playing, the way that Duren's made this leap this year, the motor of that team, the rebounding, the defense, that's a Detroit team through and through for sure. Having said that, when it gets down to nut crunching time in the playoffs and teams are just selling out to stop Cade, he's proven to be able to kind of dissect and solve a team throughout the course of a game, or maybe he can do it throughout the course of a series. I cannot see a team making the finals with Tobias Harris as their second best on-ball scorer. And until that happens, I think they need their Siakam trade that the Pacers had. I think they need to go out and get, even if it's just I'm not saying I never was sell the farm for Lauri Markkanen. I was if Lauri Markkanen's available for the right price, sure, consider go getting him. But even if you wanted to make a halfway, you buy into whatever Michael Porter Jr. is doing right now, and you want to try to go halfway and be all right, we'll give you a pick and Ivy and whatever to go try to get there needs to be someone in there that is an effective off-ball scorer, or someone that you can be a little bit more reliable as a scorer than look, Tobias, I know obviously Sixers fans have an interesting relationship with him. I just know he's not that guy at the end of the day in the playoffs.
Yeah, there was a moment with Jalen Duren at the beginning of the season where it's
he always starts great.
But is he Chris Webber now? What he was doing off the dribble, it's wait a minute, what is this? And now it's normalized a bit.
Yeah.
Where and he's back to being just the center,
And play finisher, he'll be, if he's your third scoring option and you're running that pick and roll to death, and he's just that play finisher type, he's going to be really hard to stop in any setting.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that release valve guy, I still think they just need someone else.
You said it. They need their version of a Siakam trade. I know Lauri's been tied to them. I would believe Danny Ainge trades Lauri Markkanen when he trades Lauri Markkanen. Yeah. Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, and obviously over my friends over at Game Theory, he suggested Trey Murphy the other day, and I
would be good.
That was a fascinating, that's their Mikal Bridges trade. Hopefully it doesn't cost them 5 first-round picks in order to get him, but that would be the Mikal Bridges trade.
And is a facsimile to a player like the Michael Porter Jr., Lauri Markkanen type, and also has the Trajan Langdon connection because Trajan was with the Pelicans. I'm sure he had a part of drafting him. It's possible. I think it's more likely that the Pelicans trade Herb Jones than it is to trade Trey Murphy. Like, I think it's more like, now they might be able to get like a Desmond Bane level return or a Mikal Bridges level return for Trey Murphy, and they just can't turn it away because it's just like, why, like, what are we going to do with Trey Murphy here? But the Herb Jones, the age thing, like them being 2 years apart and Herb probably costing less via trade for teams that don't really have a lot to trade. I would be interested. Like, I think the Lakers probably don't have enough, but like Herb would be great for the Lakers. I would be surprised if they trade Trey Murphy at this deadline. I think that's more likely to come next offseason, but you never know. You never know with Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars.
Brother Luka got traded. From that point on,
you never know.
Trade is in play. Every trade is in play.
Exactly.
I know I said beforehand that I was going to aim for 45, but I forgot this is a Trill Bro Dude pod. So I do have one more question, and it's what I've been asking everybody this season. It's about that game. And as somebody who literally used to do playback watch-alongs and unfortunately playback RIP, as someone who also used to be part of the playback community, but you used to literally watch Bill Simmons podcasts and watch old Bill Simmons drafts on playback. You know about that game and the phrase "that game" that Simmons put in his old page 2 column. That game for Sixers fans. And I will say it's been rare that the Knicks could potentially be a candidate for that game, with what the DiVincenzo shot, the Josh Hart shot, like whichever you want to put it. I think I know where that game is. But what if you want to tell me what is that game for Sixers fans? What is it?
We've had a lot of that game candidates for sure. Obviously, I think if you ask the whole of Sixers fans, it would either be the Kawhi shot game, or which we had 2 shot clock violations down the stretch that people don't remember. Jimmy Butler, who has been kind of nails for us up until that point of the playoffs, kind of disappeared in a game where we really needed him. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, my favorite part about revisiting that game, you know who was actually really good in that game? Ben Simmons. Very funny. Shot I think he shot like 85% from the free throw line in that game and had like one of his better games in the playoffs for us. That's what most people would say, I think, or they would say game 7 of the Hawks series, when Ben famously passed the ball, Thibault goes to the line, splits the free throws. We collapsed down the stretch of that. We've had many games. For me personally, a game that I actually streamed for, I streamed for the Knicks games. I posted my Dante DiVincenzo reaction, which I never had the courage to post until like a year afterwards, because it like legitimately bummed me out so bad that we blew that game down the stretch. But ultimately, I can kind of look back at that and be like, that Sixers team never had a chance. Like, Joel was fucking dragging himself to the finish line. Like the Knicks were just the better team. They beat us. It happens. The game for me is game 6 of the Sixers Celtics in 2023.
Yep.
They miss every fucking open 3 in the second half of that game. Melton, Tucker, everyone missing every single open 3. Joel doesn't touch the ball for the last 5 minutes of the game. We just Maxey and Harden did not have enough to muster up to get us over the finish line. Jason Tatum starts that game 1 for 13 from the field and then takes over down the stretch and knocks us out. That was our last chance. I don't think they would have won the finals that year. I think they could have got to the finals that year. And that was our last chance to really be contenders. And that was the moment that it was over. And when they went into game 7, I knew they had 0 shot. When you blow a lead, or they didn't even really have the lead all that much of that game, but when you blow a game that's that wide open that you have a chance to win against a team that has owned you in the playoffs, that was just kind of the logical conclusion to that era. And it hasn't been the same ever since. So that's the game for me personally, where it was the end of everything, basically. They
also, like game 5, they went into Boston and had what I thought was a bit of a coronation of a win. Like it's a passing of the torch. Like, this is how the Harden Embiid era ends up taking that extra step. They defeat Boston in Boston, ran them off the court,
killed them.
And then I remember watching that game 6 thinking they're up 2 going into the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And then, they scored 13 points in the fourth with Tatum. Tatum has like the best 5 for 21 game ever because of what he was in the fourth quarter of that.
And
game.
It was also like a lot of people have said this to me, people that are Boston haters and like Tatum skeptics have always been like, that would have been the offseason because Tatum had come off the finals the year before where he had like a 40 something true shooting and had a really rough finals for a player that was kind of coming into his own. And then if he had that game for them to lose, like it would have been like, we have to do a whole thing on who Jason Tatum is as a player. But instead he comes back at the end of that game, has his Kobe 5 for 21 game. They win the game. They win the series. They end up winning the finals the next year. And Tatum's kind of stamped, right? Like we never had that moment because he stepped up when his team needed him to. And unfortunately for Joel Embiid and James Harden, they just never really got that chance because they blew it down the stretch of that game.
Well, we'll see if this new Sixers core gives you a couple of opportunities to avenge.
Can't wait for more heartbreaks. Let's go. I'd be happy to be back in the picture, to be honest with you.
Look, I maintain what I said earlier. The Philadelphia sports fan experience will always intrigue me because of like watching the Black Friday game, the Philadelphia Eagles against the Bears,
the defending champions. Every
time the Eagles touch the ball, like in the huddle, they're being booed, and it's like, wait a minute, this is the defending Super Bowl champions. It's honestly given me an idea of what I might be like if the Knicks or the Mets or any of my teams ever win a title. What will I be like the following season? Dare I say it, if they win 2 in the span of 6 years, will I be like the following season? Will I still have passion for the team knowing they reached nirvana? And it's nice to see the Philadelphia fans still have that same passion.
I'm the opposite. I'm grateful.
Right.
Spoiled brats.
Okay, good.
You're not
going to have perspective,
especially in football, in football. Because I think that and the thing with football is like, it is such a year-to-year league where like the injuries and just the in and out of every day of football and the brutality of that sport, like to sustain winning in that sport is like virtually impossible. You literally have to have Brady or Mahomes and everyone else is just kind of, up for, whatever. Like anyone can win in any random year. But to have 3 Super Bowl appearances, my dad is like an Eagles fan through and through. And I've given him perspective when I was like, if I told you, and I'm sure some Jets fans will be listening to this, if I told you in 1999 that the Eagles would go to 4 Super Bowls, they would win 2. They would make the most NFC championships of any team in the next 25 to 30 years of any team in the NFC. And they had all this success. What would you say to me? And he would say, I would be over the moon. And then I said, so shut up whenever they lose. And you're complaining.
Hurts.
And then he was like, they were the Jets. They were the Jets until the year 2000, really. And then Andy Reid and McNabb and them I just like to give them that perspective. Obviously I've been spoiled because I've had that for most of my life, but I think we need to zoom out sometimes and not, boo the team that just won the Super Bowl. By the way, you said that the year after they made the Super Bowl, the second
10-1 and the team, that fan base hated them. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm just like, have a little bit of perspective. You could be frustrated with losses, but like you're lucky to be rooting for the team that you're rooting for.
Should the Knicks win the title this year, and if they win 15 games next year because of injury, because of just circumstances, I will spend every bad Knicks loss getting over it by rewatching highlights from whatever playoff run they went on. And that's what is so annoying about that game for the Knicks, is that I have a hard time watching anything about that Pacers series and at times that playoff run, knowing the car crash that it eventually led to, even though the Celtics series was through the moon euphoric, I still know what was waiting for me in game 1. The playoffs ended for me. It's like, they went to the conference finals that Friday night where they killed Boston. That was awesome. And then they fired Tibbs for some reason. I don't know what happened over the the next 2 weeks between them beating Boston and firing Tibbs? What happened in between there?
I can literally now go back and watch on YouTube. I can go back and I can watch the Eagles losing the NFC Championship game to Arizona and Tampa Bay and all those games from when I was younger. Now that they've won 2 Super Bowls, like I'm just like, I'm chilling for the rest of my life. Like you will, if the Knicks win, you will be able to go back and it won't even affect you in a few years. It will take some time, but
yeah. Well, I hope that I get to test that theory that the Knicks win a title and at least for one accomplishment this year are able to hoist a banner at Madison Square Garden that James Dolan will allow.
Got a good chance this year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Trill, thank you as always for an extended podcast. I love talking ball with you. Unfortunately not on playback, but where can people find you these days and the Ball podcast?
YouTube, Twitch, wherever you get your podcasts, Ball podcast. We just did one on the Knicks Cup and their chances to win this year. So yeah, go check it out if you like it. Thank you so much. And sorry for adding the Trill Bro Dude taxes. I always do.
Nah, it's a good Trill Bro Dude tax. That's a tongue twister. Jeez. It's always good to see you, my man. You have, I think, restored the reputation for Philadelphia sports fans, specifically Sixers fans, here in the Knicks audience for sure. Thank you as always for joining me, and thank you to everybody for tuning in to another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. If you dug it, please like this video. Remember to subscribe if you're listening. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, 5-star rating and a review. Follow us on socials, Nick Film School, SKOOL, and check out Patreon. We've got film breakdowns and Benji's gradebook over on Patreon, and then Jonathan Macri's weekly daily newsletter that he has over on Substack. Until next time, which will be on Sunday, they play the Miami Heat for the final time this season until potentially the playoffs. Until next time, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. Let's go Knicks, and I will speak with you soon. Peace. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See the Fanatics Sportsbook app.